All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a pretty fascinating tension defining the US restaurant industry right now. We're sitting squarely at the intersection of convenience and those meaningful sit down experiences. From grabbing a quick weekday lunch to intentional full service dining, restaurants play a massive role in how we spend our time and our money. But behind the scenes, there's a huge tug of war happening. On one side, we've got this incredible historic growth on paper. But on the other side, well, everyday diners are feeling some very real wallet fatigue at the table. It's your classic story of the macro boom versus the micro squeeze. And the data we're diving into today paints a really clear picture of this divide. So, looking at the macro level, the industry is just booming. I mean, we're talking a massive $1 trillion estimated valuation for the total U.S. food service market in 2025. A trillion? That covers everything from fine dining all the way down to your neighborhood fast casual joints. And this isn't just a temporary peak either. Between 2023 and 2024, the growth rate was a solid 7%. But looking ahead to the long term, between 2025 and 2029, revenue is projected to surge by another 18%, eventually hitting something like $1.3 trillion. Honestly, from a bird's eye view, the economic engines are absolutely firing on all cylinders. But then you zoom into the micro level, right down to the individual diner, and there is a serious squeeze going on. A staggering 82% of diners have noticed significant menu price hikes in their area over the past year. Just think about that for a second. Over 8 out of 10 people sitting down to eat are getting hit with sticker shock. In fact, restaurant prices actually rose 3.7% year over year just this past September alone. These price bumps are getting impossible for consumers to ignore, and it's fundamentally changing how they interact with their favorite spots. So how does this tension actually play out in real time? Let's take a look at the 2025 market dip, which served as a major reality check. It's absolutely crucial to understand how this massive industry growth actually fluctuated month to month when consumers really started feeling the heat. Listen to this sharp, dramatic dip in February 2025. Foot traffic completely plummeted to -6% year over year, and overall sales dropped down to -3%. Consumers basically pulled the emergency brake. Now, the good news is that both metrics did steadily recover over the following 4 months. By June, sales had rebounded to about +2%, and foot traffic improved to just -1%. But man, that February drop was a glaring warning sign from the market. What exactly caused that sudden freeze in early 2025? Well, that brings us to the menu price shock. Driven by those rising prices, like that 3.7% hike we saw in September, people are actively playing defense. Over half of all consumers, 54% to be exact, report that they've actively changed their habits specifically to save money. Discretionary spending is simply slowing down. And for a huge chunk of the population, about 37%, the fix has been pretty straightforward. They are literally just dining out less overall than they did last year. What's really fascinating here is the chain reaction this price shock triggers across different income brackets. Because, it's not a one-size-fits-all reaction. We're seeing a very distinct split in behavior. On one hand, higher and middle-income consumers aren't necessarily staying home. Instead, they're trading down to less expensive restaurants. They still want the experience, just at a better price point. But on the other hand, many lower-income consumers just don't have the margin to trade down, so they're pulling back on dining out altogether. It's this downward chain reaction that is completely reshaping the customer base for nearly every tier of the industry. But what about the folks who are still walking through the doors? Let's explore how diners are adapting and becoming way more selective. Dining behavior has become highly intentional and incredibly value-driven. People are actively managing their costs without totally opting out of the experience. The number one strategy used by 60% of diners is choosing cheaper restaurants. That's that trading down effect in action. Right behind that, 53% are actively hunting for discounts or coupons before they commit to a meal. And perhaps most importantly for operators to hear, 51% are simply ordering fewer items per visit. The days of carelessly adding sides and appetizers to the bill, those are fading fast for the majority of guests. And you can see exactly what's getting cut from those orders. We are witnessing a massive pullback on the extras, which ironically are usually the very items that carry the highest profit margins for the business. 42% of diners are completely skipping drinks, and 38% are passing on desserts. Even among those who do order a beverage, 14% are specifically swapping out higher-priced alcoholic drinks for cheaper soft drinks just to keep their overall tab in check. The consumer is being remarkably surgical about where they trim the fat from their restaurant bill. Hearing all this, you might think the industry is in deep trouble. But despite the sticker shock,
It isn't crashing, it's just evolving. So, what is next for restaurants?
The really good news, the silver lining in all of this data, is that over 60% of diners actually plan to maintain their current restaurant spending levels moving into 2025. This proves that restaurants still hold immense cultural and social value for us. We don't want to give up our dining experiences. We're just demanding that those experiences actually align with our current budget realities. The money is still out there, waiting to be captured by operators who understand these new rules of engagement.
And folks are finding some really creative ways to spend that money. The traditional appetizer, entree, and dessert model, totally being disrupted. A striking 41% of diners now prefer to mix and match snack items to build a customized meal. It's a massive trend called snackification. It lets the diner feel completely in control of their final bill. You get the fun, social vibe of eating out, you get to try a bunch of different flavors, and you keep the total cost strictly within your comfort zone. It's a pretty brilliant consumer adaptation. But this brings us to a massive operational hurdle. With all of these wildly unpredictable consumer shifts, diners trading down, people ordering less, and 41% turning meals into erratic mix-and-match snacking occasions, it leaves us with one really critical question. How do restaurants accurately forecast their labor needs to actually survive and stay profitable? Think about it. If a table of 4 sits down but only orders 2 snacks and water, the revenue generated does not match historical data for that table, but the labor required to serve them might be exactly the same. Balancing this front-of-house evolution with back-of-house labor forecasting is absolutely the ultimate puzzle the restaurant industry has to solve in 2026. So the next time you go out to eat, take a look around. How are your favorite local spots adapting to this new reality? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.